Hello everyone! I am finally sitting down to film my review of Florence and the Machine's 5th studio album titled Dance Fever that just came out on Friday the 13th of May. I am obviously a week late making this video. Unfortunately, COVID finally got me. Yeah, no, I'm not sure if I had it before, but this was the first time I had been symptomatic. And so it took me out of commission for about a week, but I'm good now. I'm still positive, but I'm feeling better. So we're going to get this video filmed because I got some videos I want to make. I do want to talk about Eurovision as well, which came out around the same time. So that's going to be coming soon too. But I decided ultimately this was more important for me to do first because I have, of course, made videos about the new single she released this winter, King, Heaven is Here, and My Love, which were sort of like the 3 big singles she gave ahead of the release. She also released a song called Free, which I have not talked about, but that was also released ahead of time. Now, Heaven is Here is just a little song, but the other 2 were like big singles, and I had glowing things to say about those tracks. I will link those reviews more in depth in the description. But here we are, her 5th studio album. It comes 4 years after High as Hope, which I have also reviewed. I have reviewed all of Florence on this channel. So if you're new here, I am a longtime Florence fan. I became a fan right when Ceremonials came out. So I did miss her for the Lungs era, but I, fell in love with that as well. But Ceremonials and How Big, How Blue are my babies. Those 2 records are quintessential Florence for me. Lungs is, of course, iconic in its own way, but I don't have the same connection to Lungs as I do with Ceremonials and How Big, How Blue, mainly because I just witnessed them coming out at the actual time of their release. And they're just my favorite records, not just of hers, but of a lot of all time, like of the last decade. So Florence had a lot to live up to. And Highest Hope, it's funny, I was like trying to think what I said in my Highest Hope review, because it was 4 years ago. And I was like, did I give it a glowing review? Do I need to rewatch it just to sort of like cover my tracks? I think that Highest Hope was a very short album and left a little bit to be desired, especially coming off of her past projects before that. And so I was really hoping that whatever her next album would be, I was hoping for something just with a little bit more of a fully fleshed out track list, something with a little bit more of a committed concept behind it, and something just a little bit more overdramatic. Because that's what Florence is known for. She's known for pounding, drums and for wailing vocals and caterwauling choruses, great choral moments, the use of like live band instrumentation, use of the harp, and just like really strong stirring melodies that, just like feel like an exorcism for the soul. And I felt like Highest Hope was a little bit more like her Joanne era, comparing her to Lady Gaga. It was very stripped back. It was almost a little country in parts. And it just felt a little bit more like I've tamed down. I'm not as crazy as I once was. I'm not doing things as flashily. And I have songwriting prowess, but this isn't my big showy album that, everyone's going to remember me for. And I felt like this album needed to sort of grab the attention again. And with the 2 singles that she gave us, well, really the 3, I felt like very much like we were back in for a ride here. I was very, very excited when we got King and when we got Free and when we got My Love, especially my favorite out of all the singles she's released so far. And then we got these cards, these tarot cards, which she really duped us into thinking there were going to be 15 songs on this record. And I gotta be honest, Florence Welch, that was tricksy. I'm not sure I really have with you for that, but whatever, because the 15th card, which was in the middle, was just the album title. It was very much a cop-out. We only have 14 songs on this record. However, we do technically have a deluxe version, which came on streaming a week later. I'm actually really glad I kind of waited a week, because now I've heard the deluxe tracks. Florence fans will be dismayed to know there is only one other real new track, and it's a cover. It's an Iggy Pop cover called Search and Destroy. And then we have 4 acoustic versions of songs on the record. We have Cassandra acoustic, we have Free acoustic, we have Morning Elvis acoustic, and we have My Love acoustic, which I definitely think were wonderful to listen to, so I'm nothing against that. I just do wish we had some more extra bonus tracks, like on How Big, How Blue and Ceremonials. Those albums ended up being like 16, 17, 18 songs long, without including all the demos and stuff that she threw in. So again, we've got more than 10 songs here, so we've got something. But 2 of these songs are under 1.5 minutes long. Prayer Factory and Restraint, which is like 40 seconds. So again, I feel like this whole tarot card idea of every song is a tarot card it feels a little bit like some of these don't deserve to be their own cards because they're so short. Not every song is fully, I don't know. It's just, you know how I feel about interludes. You know how I feel about tiny songs. Attach them to bigger songs. Don't, I mean, it's not like we're in the days of iTunes where you buy things. You know how you used to buy a song for $1.29, no matter the song length? That was a real scam. At least we're no longer in the days of iTunes where that's an issue, but having them be their own little track, it's sort of like, I don't know, they just, especially with Restraint, like it should have been, I don't know. Anyway, that's my whole thing. I mean, I do think that they are their own thing. It's frustrating when the album is teased as 14 songs and it's really only 12, maybe 11 and a half, if that. But be that as it may. We have this album, we have the title, we have Dance Fever, we have the cover. And I'm not sure if I made a video, I talked about this, how I feel like the album cover has taken a little time to grow on me. When it first dropped, I was a little bit confused. I felt it was a little on the nose with the witchy aesthetic, with the sort of Art Nouveau medieval glam thing. I mean, it's so Florence, but her album covers have never hit you over the head with that before. And this album cover almost feels like a parody of that, in that it's so on the nose with that aesthetic. But I've come to accept it. You know, it's Florence in this witchy medieval glam era. I'm not going to falter for that. That's exactly what I wanted when Highest Hope came out and we didn't get as much of. So I love that she's kind of channeling her inner sort of Renaissance era kind of, or, you know, a Victorian era, Victorian ghosty kind of era. I love that she's kind of taking it in that 16th century witch direction. But, you know, the album art, it's maybe not quite how I would have designed it. Just the fact that it looks a little bit more like a magazine cover for, you know, Vogue UK than it necessarily looks like a Florence album cover. But that's a whole other thing. Okay, and then Dance Fever. I would have personally titled this album Choreomania. I think Dance Fever, it's a little pedestrian for Florence. You know, she is a poet. Words mean something. And Dance Fever, you know, it's fine as an album title, but the Choreomania would have been much more of a Florentian kind of title. It would have made you really think. It would have made you have to do some research into what the album's about. Dance Fever just sounds like a generic, you know, disco album. But I've made all that clear. I mean, I do think there is a song obviously called Choreomania on here, and she talks about the inspiration being, you know, these dance ritual kind of things people would do in the Middle Ages. People would just start dancing. Power of dance compels them. They don't always know why. They would dance sometimes to the point of absolute exhaustion that they'd actually kill themselves. Like they would dance themselves to death. And so Florence was really taken with this idea. She was also very much inspired by, you know, the sort of folk dances that you'd see in films, cult classic horror films like Midsummer and The Wicker Man. Shout out to The Wicker Man. I need to watch that movie. She dropped it as inspiration. Really want to, that's a movie I've been wanting to see for a long time. So I really love this sort of proto-Celtic kind of pagan vibe that she's channeling with all of this stuff. It's a bit spooky, Salem witch trial kind of stuff going on. That's something I'm always coming to Florence for. But, you know, as with all of her concepts, I'm not exactly necessarily needing that concept of dancing to the point of exhaustion from some sort of spiritual mania. I'm not necessarily needing that to carry through all of her tracks on the record. I mean, How Big, How Blue, How Beautiful was a concept song that became a concept album, but it doesn't necessarily reference everything that's going on in the record. So I'm okay with, you know, the fact that Choreomania, and there's a couple other songs that tie into the thread, but the rest of it seems to be kind of its own little thing. And as she describes this album, it is a fairy tale in 14 songs. Now we open up the record with King, and we also open up the record with the first 6 or so songs being produced by Jack Antonoff. So we're not getting any Paul Epworth or anything on this record. So it's a little bit more of a different direction. And when I saw Jack Antonoff tied to it, I was a little, but you know what? I think we can, you know, agree that, you know, Florence is in control enough to not let Jack kind of ruin everything. I'm not so anti-Jack anymore. I'm trying to soften to his production. It's just, he's on everything. I'm like, all pop girls need to go somewhere else. We can use other artists, other producers. But King is the perfect thesis statement song for the record. I mean, it packs a punch. It delivers. It really sets a kind of here and now statement for Florence with where she's at with like relationships and with the idea of motherhood and her career in her mid-30s. I talk all about this in my track review. So really, honestly, King is one of the strongest songs on the record because every time I listen to it, I don't feel like I'm listening to a traditional pop song. You know, the song is just really organically kind of taking this emotion and then letting the instrumental kind of expand around it in really interesting ways. I love the highs and lows of this song. It just feels like fully baked, like it was in the oven for just the right amount of time. And then we go right into track number 2, which is arguably actually more up-tempo than Choreomania. Sometimes I feel as if I should be medicated or at least slightly sedated, she sings over this really thumping, rhythmic dance floor beat, rock beat that really keeps the tempo moving at the same pace pretty much throughout. Free is, a wonderful meditation on the power of anxiety over the mind. And the music video, which features Bill Nighy, which I thought was really interesting and a really fun pairing for the two of them, Florence and Bill Nighy playing. Bill plays her anxiety personified and they're sort of attached at the hip. And I love the scenes where Florence is like reenacting, it picks me up, puts me down, picks me up, puts me down. Like it's so well choreographed and so well thought through. And I think it just really embodies the essence of like, Bill Nighy being the part of her brain that's always anxious, that's always kind of contained and scrolling through, the internet constantly and finding the next thing to be dour or worried or consciously anxious about. And Florence is just the part of her subconscious is just trying to escape and like sort of have these manic moments of like, I should be free from this. While she's dancing on tables. It's just absolutely brilliant and it encapsulates the energy of the song and the lyrics perfectly. I love this song. I mean, it's pretty by the numbers Florence, I would say. It definitely was like a song that felt like it was just a perfect continuation from what we were hearing from the other singles. I really honestly kind of don't have anything negative to say about the two openers because I just feel like they really set this, storybook opening kind of narrative really well. It's like hard on the sleeve, but we're going to get you moving. We're going to have grandiose choruses. We're going to have really great rhythms to dance to. Everything's in the bag. And that's so I was so excited for track number 3, which was the title track. Everything was sort of building up to this. And unfortunately, the title track is where I feel like we reach our first sort of roadblock. I want so much more from such a conceptually weighted title track. This song shouldn't be more than 3 minutes long. I really feel like since King was over 4 minutes, this song needs to be even longer. I mean, if you think about How Big, How Blue, that song was like 5.5 minutes long, and it had this outro with the horn section, which really made it more cinematic than anything. It wasn't just a song. It was an attachment to a visual. It was a narratively, visually strung together kind of conceptual moment. And I feel like Choreomania really needed that to sort of centralize the overall thematic of this record. I was kind of expecting something that, did start out soft. And that's what we get, almost this like light instrument percussion is reminiscent of Dog Days. And then just her vocals kind of coming in with more layers being thrown in as we crescendo and we pick up pace and we add more layers. I definitely expected that, but I thought that there'd be some more highs and lows, and I thought it would take us longer to get there. I really thought that this was going to be like a 6-minute long, Sonic Odyssey moment, like more experimentation in terms of, vocal delivery. And we definitely get the line, I'll be your demon daddy in this, drawling baritone, which is really haunting and really sexual and wonderful. There are some amazing little lyrical moments here. I mean, the opening spoken word part where she says, and I am freaking out on the street with the complete conviction of someone who's never actually had anything that bad happen to them. I am there. I am placed in that moment. I am, listening to it with headphones and like feeling like, okay, we're going to dance in the field like a crazy witch here. Like this is going to happen. I get it. Like, and I feel like everything around the lyrics I want more. I mean, I totally am vibing with. But once we start picking up to where we're going, I just feel like, well, the song's first of all pretty much over. And also, I just feel like we're not really picking up we're not picking up some sort of thread that makes this song feel conceptually weighted. I feel as though it is just a moment in time where, we start dancing really fast for a brief period of time, but then we forget about it entirely. I don't know if anyone's thinking I'm picking this song apart. I want more from it. I just want it to be longer. I want us to sort of have more time to revel, maybe feel a little bit more of the tapestry of the different kinds of dancing that can be done. I'm thinking of all these people dancing in circles, like in crazy midsummer festivals, and this back and forth that's involved with that. I mean, I've listened to so much. I've listened to like European folk dance music, and there is a rhythm and there is a wave pattern to it that is infectious and something that's very cyclical that comes back around. There's none of that in Choreomania. We go through like one round and then it's done. I want this to I don't know, I just want this to pick up steam more. So that song, I'll be honest with you, sonically, melodically, it's pretty lackluster. It's not one of my favorites. The melody doesn't really stand out. I don't really feel as though there's a real bearing with it, but it definitely does get you on your feet. Gets you on your feet, but we've been on our feet already. This album, Free is, if anything, more of the Choreomania song than anything. But then we really strip it down. It's almost like, at the end of Choreomania, you're supposed to completely collapse with exhaustion, which, granted, the song should be longer. We should be more exhausted. But I feel at the end of that song, we abruptly stop, as I expected we should. And we collapse to the floor, kind of heaving. And I feel that when we go into Back in Town, which is track number 4. I think it was smart for her to pair, for the 4th song, such a sparse ballad. This is obviously the most bare-all song on the record, and the emotions are really raw in her vocals. Now, Various Storms and Saints, this song is not, and that does miff me a teeny bit. I'll be honest with you, because I'm, I'm looking for this grandiose, lamentative melody. And Back in Town is a little half-baked in that regard. Never really been alive before. I always lived in my head. Reading from my diary, I see. And sometimes it was easier, hungover, and half dead. I'm back in town, why don't we go out? Let the rats spin around our feet. The full moon shines down on these dirty streets. Back in town, why don't we go out? To that 9th Street diner and carry on slowly, torturing each other, because it's always the same. I came for the pleasure, but I stayed. Yes, I stayed for the pain. At this point, Florence has collapsed from exhaustion, from that manic sort of emotion explosion in Choreomania, and she's reflecting on the cycle of returning to these bars, to these nightclubs, and, wasting her way at the bar, drinking her feelings away. Florence, I believe, is now at this point, I think she said 7 years sober. And keep in mind, I really do need to watch that Zane Lowe interview. I'm actually kind of surprised I haven't watched it yet before filming this video. I've seen snippets of it. But correct me if I'm wrong, I believe she is still 7 years sober. And that's really impressive, but I don't actually know if she is sober, or if she just doesn't really quite party like she used to. I'm not sure if she's not touched alcohol in that period of time. I hope she hasn't, because I know that alcohol has kind of led her into self-destructive patterns, and I don't know. The Florence that I'm a little bit of a Puritan when it comes to this stuff. I would prefer to see Florence on a little bit more of the homeopathic garden sober hippie era that she's been on. But I don't know if that's necessarily always in the cards for her. The girl likes to party. Okay, it's the one thing about Florence that I sort of I go, girl, we know better, but whatever, you like to party. And she's reflecting on the fact that, it was this self-destructive pattern that she got stuck in for so long. But she did it because she wanted to feel something. It felt good. Even though it ultimately never actually did, but she kept forgetting that and kept going back and back. And when she comes back to that old town, that's what happens. She comes back to London or wherever. And so, I don't know if this is entirely new territory for her to just openly reveal about in song, but it's an important part of the narrative she's going through here. And I feel everything she's singing. She's really, really good at letting the vocal not only take center stage with how aching and soulful it is, but with just adding such weighted emotional heaviness to it all. because the lyrics are so guttingly honest. Girls Against God, track number 5. This is a song that has grown on me. I was really excited when I saw the title, and I think that although it definitely sounds the most Jack Antonoff out of all of these, I can hear his Taylor Swiftian instrumentation kind of playing in there. Um, this is the kind of heart-stricken balladry that I'm here for from Florence. And it's good to be alive, crying into cereal at midnight. If they ever let me out, I'm really going to let it out. I listen to music from 2006 and feel kind of sick. But oh God, you're going to get it. You'll be sorry that you messed with this. I think I read somewhere that Florence was, talking about how she was really stuck in a nostalgia bug, like in the pandemic and dealing with like isolation. And Tom Veck, who she mentions, remember being in that basement with Tom Veck? That's like a nod to her friend group she was, hanging out. She really misses those days where she would just listen to music as a teenager and or as like a 20-year-old or whatever, and just sort of hang out and drink and play with the band, even if she would play with her friends on guitar. When I decided to wage holy war, it looked very much like staring at my bedroom floor. Oh God, you're going to get it. You'll be sorry that you ever messed with me. I mean, Florence is, so viscerally tying us all into her sorrow in these songs and these lyrics, and I think she does such a wonderful job of depicting forlorn, glazed over depression, and anger, resentment towards God, towards whatever higher power is supposed to be watching over us, because you done blew it. You'll be sorry that you messed with me. And as she points out, deliciously in a very evil way, which I think is wonderfully interluded into, with that cackle and those high-heeled boots on the floor. I met the devil. He gave me a choice, a golden heart or a golden voice. And there's a uncanny, sonnets to her delivery of that, because she is kind of admitting that, the good girl has been sold down the river. That innocent bastion of Christian devotion and piety. Sorry, you missed her. The old Florence can't come to the phone right now. I'm sorry, she's dead. And we go right into Dream Girl Evil. We pick up a little bit more of a familiar guitar kind of backed melody that I hear Florence kind of fitting at home in very easily. Dream Girl Evil is a really interesting mixture of words. The order of it doesn't make any sense. Doesn't really need to. Well, did you miss me? Walk on water just to kiss me? Oh, come and get me, drag me out, destroy me. I've been expecting you. I'm ready. Deliver me that bad news, baby. Am I your dream girl? You think of me in bed, but you could never hold me and like me better in your head. Make me evil, then I'm an angel instead. At least you'll sanctify me when I'm dead. Dream girl, evil. Florence definitely touches on self-parody in these lyrics here. And of course, something that she also touches upon on other songs like King. I need my golden crown of sorrow, my heavy sword to swing, my empty halls to fill with grand self-mythology. She is, so self-aware of, the archetype that she plays into, this sort of jilted, innocent Victorian goddess, feminine, ultra-feminine, mother embodying someone who plays both the mother and the maiden. She kind of takes on this sort of ultra femininity so effortlessly. I mean, a lot of it's just how she looks, but it's also how she delivers her lyrics. It's so achingly feminine, but yet also powerful and guttural and witch-like. There's a definite Fleetwood Mac influence on the melody on this one. And she plays with good and evil. Like, she likes to more Catholic taste than the devil. Like, she's just throwing out all those references. And, sometimes it seems a little bit like just throwing it all out there and seeing what sticks, but there's a rhyme and a reason to everything she writes. And I feel drawn in by the whimsicality of all of the references. all the Christian references, all the religious references, and then the idea of women in society and the expectations placed upon them in the relationship from the male perspective of being such paragons of virtue, being that dream girl, until suddenly you can be tossed aside and the next pretty thing, and or that you are perhaps not as good in person as their fantasy. You can never live up to their fantasy. Deliver me that bad news, baby. Just tell me that you don't think that I'm as pretty as you thought. I'm ready for it. And I'm going to stick some pins in your voodoo doll as I do it. I mean, she definitely gives off that energy of like, hold on a sec. I just gotta twist this crucifix I made of you really quick with twine. Like, it's okay. I'm just dousing you in some, unholy water. It's all good. You're going to be fine. I love you so much. I hope you go to hell. Like that kind of energy.
My friends need to be punished.
So, Prayer Factory, wish it was longer. All the things that I ran from, I now bring as close to me as I can. Gripping hotel sheets with gritted teeth. My montage of lost things. My shining trinkets of grief. She wails in the chorus, which sounds a little bit like it's from behind closed doors. There's a bit of a distance from it. Why don't you give me a call, open my mouth, yes, I'll take it all, and all this work gone to waste. You made me climb, then you shut the gate. We enter the Dave Bailey section of the record. So Dave Bailey of Glass Animals, which actually I do think has like a slightly different, shift in somewhat sonic direction. There's almost like this clinking of metal or machinery kind of used by the instrumental here behind the ominous string work that's kind of underneath her tone of voice, and everything just feels very ominous as it builds up and then abruptly ends into Cassandra. Cassandra is a Greek mythological figure cursed by Apollo to tell true prophecies that would never be believed. She predicted the fall of Troy, but no one listened. It's interesting that Florence sort of admits that in her last record's opener, June, when she sang Hold On to Each Other, this was before COVID. Florence, when COVID hit, was like, hey, I predicted this. I mean, it's a stretch, but I can tell she's sort of like, she's not admitting she's a seer, but it's an interesting correlation. And personifying herself as this sort of this prophet who only speaks things that no one wants to hear, which kind of, when you think about it, is what the woman has often been kind of relegated to in history in general, especially, women who are considered to be very wise, but the men are, not desiring them. So they just want what they have going for them physically. They don't really care what they're saying, or they don't take what they're saying to heart. They don't really listen, or they discount everything they say. Well, can you see me? I cannot see you. Everything I thought I knew has fallen out of view. In this blindness I'm condemned to. Can you hear me? I cannot hear you. Every song I thought I knew I've been deafened to, and there's no one left to sing to. This figure is just like absolutely in the utter darkness. I love in verse 3 where she sings, all the gods have been domesticated and heaven is now overrated, and the churches, they all close their doors, but you can still take your complaints straight to the Lord. In the bridge, she, spoken words, this part, oh, drunken gods of slaughter, take me back. I've always been your favorite daughter. I think in terms of her songwriting, this is one of the most interesting on the record. The metaphors that are used, the imagery that's conjured up to tell the story of a woman who feels completely neglected and forsaken by God, by all things good, and yet who still has hope after all of this, who is still reaching out for someone to listen to what what she has to sing. So Jack Antonoff is on this track. This is not a Dave Bailey one. And it kind of, again, seems a little bit more like it fits with the Antonoff guitar kind of era of the beginning of the record. All the equations are just wonderfully coming together here. Her vocals are clear. You can hear what she's singing front and center, but there's all this interesting stuff going on in the background. We've got the oohs and ahs of her harmonizations, the guitar, the bass, the drums, the harp. We have the harp included in this. I mean, it feels outdoors. It feels grand. It feels jaded. The melody is not the strongest I've heard of hers. And this is unfortunately going to be a bit of a recurring problem I have with this record. The melodies are not very recognizable. I think Girls Against God maybe has the most recognizable hook to it, but even a stretch. But I mean, again, Florence isn't a pop girl. She's not going to necessarily care about that. And I can't fault her for that. I really can't. It's just how Big How Blue always had that hook to it to just seal the deal. And I wish that was there on more of these tracks. Unfortunately, Heaven is Here, a wonderful spoken word, a cappella, hand clap, percussive, guttural, experimental exploration of poetry and song and dance. I mean, wonderfully self-choreographed for Florence to just kind of let loose and let that witchy pagan energy come through. So great, so great. And in the context of the record, I mean, it's really interesting to just have that moment where the record gets very sparse and very direct. So Daffodil, when I saw that song title, I was kind of like doing this in my head because I was just like, okay, Daffodil in the singular, not plural. What does that mean? It made me want to look up where the title came from. Is it a Greek term that was used? The inspiration for this song, I think, is so interesting. But so almost silly. In the middle of the pandemic, she missed going out to just get coffee and pick flowers. And I guess she always had an affinity for them. I'm going to be honest with you, daffodils are not my favorite flower. I think they're sort of like, they're a step above daisies, but they're very, very generic flowers. Like, I don't know, maybe it's just because they grow everywhere in the spring that you kind of are like, okay, if a flower is just so ubiquitous, it's not like quite something so special to me. And so a daffodil, it's not like really like, of all the flowers, it doesn't have the most romantic name. I don't know, it's interesting. It's also called narcissus. And I think apparently the daffodil is the national flower of Wales, and it is Florence's favorite flower. So there must be some familial connection there that also adds symbolic weight to it. This is why she chose to center this song around the daffodil. But I would have maybe oh my God, hibiscus. Hibiscus. That is the flower that inspires the energy that I get from daffodils. But that she's giving us with daffodil. But you know what? I will look in the face of a daffodil and I will feel this song forevermore now. I mean, I get it. There is still something so bright and optimistic. The daffodils are one of the first flowers of spring to come, usually when it's like very rainy, very wet, very dreary, maybe even still snowing. And they are that early sign of spring. I couldn't help it. I let it get in. The helpless optimism of spring. Worn out and tired, and my heart near retired, and the world bent double from weeping, and yet the birds begin to sing. I'm not bad, I'm not good. I drank every sky that I could, made myself mythical, tried to be real, saw the future in the face of a daffodil. I mean, it's like, talk about something mythical and then something so almost mundane. It's like I rose to such heights searching for myself, and then at the end of the day, it was just staring at a freaking daffodil, and I just wept. It's like the yogis in Tibet, like, they could never. It sort of gives me that idea, because in the everyday in a flower, it is cheesy to kind of give it this, loaded symbolic weight of esoteric nature. But at the end of the day, it's the kind of hippie, homeopathic, witch garden goddess energy that I want from Florence. I would love for her to make an album where she sings songs inspired by all the flowers. Wouldn't that be really cool? Like, every song is just the name of a flower. I thought of that as the Lana Del Rey idea at first, because Lana likes to use flowers a lot as well. But then I was like, oh my God, for Florence, that would be even more interesting. And actually, I think that, there's something, daffodils, I think it was quite whimsical, quite light. But there's also something very, like, I don't want to say drastic, but there's something very, look at me. Like, look at me. I'm very, like, very showy, very flashy. And this song is very flashy. It's very showy. And the way she just chants the chorus and then we have this pounding guitar around it. You know, if you pitch the song to me, I'd be like, this ain't gonna work. This is not gonna work. This is not what I expect. But it works somehow. At the end of the day, it's one of my favorite songs on the record. And the melody is not in the chorus, but it's very much present wonderfully in everything else. And I think it raises itself up to heights that I didn't know it could. I think this song is a. Florence thought she had lost it because she was just saying daffodil over again. Apparently, the ancient Romans used them as sleep medicine, like the petals, or maybe poison. She's not really sure. So the song, in the peak of the pandemic, I wrote a song today. It might be the most Florence thing I've ever done. I'm just singing daffodil over and over. I don't know. I mean, there's something very Florence about the fact that she just stuck with this idea. She just finished it. You know, I do think that the absurdity of it is matched in the execution. Like, the idea is kind of camp, and she serves us kind of camp Florence and the Machine. Like, I don't know. There's something, the pieces fit together. I still think this song has meaning. I don't think that it's completely silly or anything. I think it's actually quite esoteric for the record, but it's just interesting. I don't know. I'm here for it. We move right into My Love. Now, the one moment of the record where I can just like let the fully, you know, polished and produced melody that is so ceremonial just wash over me. There is a moment in the record. It is a moment in the record that feels distinct because I don't know if the record needed this in other places, but nothing else on the record sounds like this in terms of production, in terms of filling and commanding the stage in the same way with that spotlight. The rest of the record is just so earthy and kind of acoustic. And so I don't know if I was necessarily looking for more of that. Maybe this was a bit of a misdirect because this song had me thinking, oh, we're getting a ceremonials record. And then at the end of the day, it's sort of like, this is kind of the only song that's really reminding me of ceremonials. I mean, technically in the lyrics, I get allusions to stuff she sung about on those records, but sonically, I don't really feel like anything else is really taking me there to the same degree. Because this is kind of like Spectrum's little sister, you know, it's definitely in that same vein, and it is a belter. I mean, it is just a 100% polished, bona fide pop song for her. I mean, it's so well done, and the acoustic version emphasizes just how wonderful of a melody it is. And even though I do not like songs that are just like My Love or I Love You, like such generic, tropey lyrics, I don't care. It's very much, it's on the nose, but it's very much the kind of song where I'm not really worrying about the lyrics. I'm just worrying about the expression of it and feeling the melody. Totally there for it. Restraint, want more of this. This sounds like it's in mid-exorcism, like a moment we've caught is like Florence like crumpled up under a blanket, like, have I learned restraint? Am I quiet enough? And she's of course been so loud. It's such a wonderful sort of FU moment. And then we do that guttural sort of like, if you've seen the Grudge films, Kayako and what's his face, Toshio, he does the growl thing. She does it in the highest hope, and she really leans into it on this record, which honestly I don't have a problem with. It's getting a little tropey now if she keeps doing it over and over again. But, you know, it serves such purpose to paint this picture of like just a completely sinking your teeth into the listener, really getting their attention. Notice how breath and the exhale and inhale is a common theme at the beginning and end of a lot of these songs, like with Daffodil, for example, and with The Bomb. The Bomb is so interesting because when I was looking at the track listing, I thought that The Bomb was going to sound a lot more like how Daffodil sounded and vice versa. When you look at a title like The Bomb and you think of Florence's music, you're expecting a explosive daffodilian like song. And when you look at Daffodil, you're expecting sort of a light strumming in the guitar, airy kind of moment. But those songs are completely in reverse. The Bomb is the softest song on the record. Besides Back in Town, which is very stark, this song is just mellow and soft and folksy. It's a wonderful melody. This sounds like it could have been right on High as Hope. It's kind of coming from that same country-tinged kind of ambient era. I've blown apart my life for you, and bodies hit the floor. Break me, shake me, devastate me. Come here, baby, tell me I'm wrong. I don't love you, I just love the bomb. Buildings falling is the only thing that turns me on. I let it burn, but it just had to be done. And I'm in ruins, but is it what I wanted all along? Sometimes you get the girl, sometimes you get the song. So aptly reflecting on the transience of relationships, and Florence reflecting on her own journey through like that world in her life, and wondering if, maybe she really isn't apt for a steady building bond and happy fairy tale. I mean, at the end of No Choir, she sings happiness would be a very uneventful subject. There's not much to write about two people perfectly in love forever and ever. And she really is questioning that here. I mean, she's like, I'm actually more in love with the tumult than I am with the peace. The stability scares me. When I have the option, when someone throws me a grenade, I always choose to blow it up. Reflecting on how she says it's a fear of growing up and a fear of getting older, that hits really deep. This isn't in the lyrics, but it's in something she says about the song. Because if you regenerate yourself constantly through other people by blowing up, changing everything, you never really have to face aging or death. And this is something I have been thinking about a lot, in the fact that I'm nearly 30 and I have not found the one yet. But one of the things that really scares me about potentially finding them is this feel of like, well, then if I find this person, it's sort of like, this is it. I'm going to be with this person till I die. And I'm going to grow old with this person. And I really have to accept that process by doing that. If I decide to just change everything in 2 years, then I don't ever have to really think like about, I know how the rest of my life is going to go. Because that's a really scary thing, I think, for us to accept, especially at a young age. If we find our partner early, it's like the till death do us part line really hits home, because it's like, gosh, that's a long way away. And I'm going to be with this person for the rest of my life. And like, I think I want to be with them now, but am I always going to? And is this like a death sentence? Like, is this going to make me like feel caged in? And there is a freedom to not knowing where your next romance is going to come, not knowing where your next home is going to be. But when you know that that is most likely going to be where your path is heading for the rest of time, it's like, I don't know, it's a heavy thing to come to grips with, and it does make you think about mortality. So I totally get where Florence is coming from on this sort of like, I'm in love with just catching fire all the time because I can start over. I'm only starting. I'm never actually getting far enough in the journey to even contemplate the end, because I'm too busy right now putting out fires I've already made in the past, and starting over, and just this beginning part of the journey. It's the part of the journey where we're finding our feet. It's scary to move beyond that. We get very comfortable with it, and that's something I'm thinking a lot with me being like I don't want to say that I'm 100% to blame for how my relationship's not panning out yet, or the fact that I haven't found the one. It's not, a lot of it's out of my control, but a part of me does think it's me very like being really afraid to just commit to that, like not necessarily the monogamy of it, but just the finality of like, this is it. I might die holding this person's arms. Like this is the one. Like there's no more mystery about the rest of my life. It's been written. It's like it hasn't, but you know what I mean? Like for some people, that's how it is when they find someone so young. Anyway, why is it that the person who gives you the most space and gives you nothing, why is it that they are the most appealing person? Oh, I mean, Florence is giving me so much on this track. She is giving me so much, and I know, girl. I feel that they are mythical. They are so much more important than the person sitting next to you in the flesh. Like the person that you will never be able to get, the person who is always without out of reach, is always going to occupy that space in your mind. If you have a feeling for them and the fantasy of it, you can just play and run that wild through your head for the rest of time, while you let your reality just kind of implode in on itself. You said this could have been the best thing, I think she's singing to herself here, that ever happened to you. So you decided not to do it. Now you come back every summer like a carnivorous flower. And I stare at your hands in the heat, and I think they are the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. But if I was free to love you, you wouldn't want me, would you? Unavailability is the only thing that turns you on. So true. It's so true. The heart wants what it can't have. And if it can't have what it truly wants, then it's going to sabotage anything else. So it's going to subconsciously or consciously just make you blow up all your other relationships because that mythic one in your head is just always going to be ahead. You're going to throw that bomb, girl. I feel it. So this is a highlight for me. I mean, melodically it could be a little stronger, but it's also not really meant to be about the melody. It's just a vibe. The closing track, Morning Elvis. Florence is really good at closers, and I'm going to be honest, this is my least favorite out of all of her records. This song is a little too Highest Hopian, Joanne-y, kind of like, yeah, I'm just singing about how I'd love to go to Graceland. Like, okay, we get it. You want your country girl moment. Like, come on, Florence. Where is the mother ending? Where is the cathartic, like, wailing banshee? Where is she? Where's the incantation spell that I want you to leave on me at the end of this record, which I was expecting when I looked at the whole concept? Because by the end of this record, it really does feel like the whole dance fever concept, like, girl, we moved on. We're back in the Joanne-y kind of Highest Hope stuff. Like, we're not dealing with that anymore. But you know what? It is what it is. I do feel like, though, in the context of this record, to end the record on something a little bit more high octane, a little bit more like rhythmic and like something you can move your body to, it just would have suited the era of this. This is so Highest Hope. This is so Highest Hope. It's not really something I would end the album. I would have given this album one more song, but it is what it is. It's not my album. I'm not Florence. I respect her as an artist and her decision making, but sometimes I'm just like, girl, we're on too much of the same wavelength. That's why it bugs me when you make these decisions, because I would have done this just a little differently. But this is inspired by a time in New Orleans where I believe Florence partied a little too hard and she missed her show or something, and her manager had to come get her. And it was really embarrassing. Correct me if I'm wrong on the story. I need to read the interview. But you know, she alludes to the fact that, you know, she never got to see Graceland on a trip that she made to Memphis for a similar reason. She was too hungover in the hotel. But she thinks, you know, this is the most Elvis thing I could have done. Like, to not actually go to Graceland, but to be hungover in the bathroom. Like, she's kind of like, well, I'm carrying on his spirit. And like, I get it. Like, I mean, the Florence, again, that I'm kind of rooting for is the hermit in her garden, surrounded by bunnies and rabbits and Ouija boards and, you know, candles and doing her own thing. And she's not exactly like touring in Memphis. Like, I'm not really like seeing that image of her anymore. She's my girl's a recluse now. My girl's on Enya level here. Like, whatever, what are we talking about? But Florence is still, you know, a woman of the world. She's trying to take inspiration from these bands and she's channeling that spirit, that rock and roll spirit. I mean, she sings about rock and roll. She says, what if rock and roll is not brought back in your image on Choreomania? I can't believe I forgot to mention that line. Love that line. And she also says, what if Jesus came back and was wearing a dress? And all the evangelicals were like, oh yeah. I mean, that's basically calling for Jonathan Van Ness, right? Like, we're summoning him, right? Because he is the answer to Jesus and he wears a dress. So there you go. I can't not think of it when I hear that line. But yeah, I thought the way to hang on to your rock and roll boots was to be the drunkest person in the room. Florence, no. Please, we want sober Florence. We want sober old lady Florence who write music about flowers. That's what I want. I want an album all about flowers. Oh my God, that'd be so interesting. Like, metaphorically, of course, taking inspiration from, like, you know, the Latin name and like, oh, the goddess and god that's associated with, like she did with Cassandra and like she did with Daffodil. Please, Florence, don't go into retirement and have babies yet. I fear that might be happening because she mentions in the end of this song, and after every tour, I swear I'll quit. It's over, boys. Now this is it. But the call, it always comes. And the songs like children begging to be born. Now she's just alluding to songs as children. But I mean, there's also a little bit of that allusion to like children begging me to be born, biological clock. I know she's thinking about that as well. And so, you know, this song definitely ends with like, and I come back to the stage every time and I face my public, my adoring fans. We hear the crowd applause as we close out the record. but it definitely feels a little bit like a swan song moment. It feels a little bit like an artists never know when they're going to take really long hiatuses, and heck, it's been 4 years since High as Hope. So if it's another 4 years, I mean, that's fine. Probably going to be at least until we get another record. But I do have to wonder, is this kind of a mini retirement point for her? The way she sings about, and she talks about how she thought High as Hope was going to be that, but then she, realized she couldn't stop writing. And I hope that she has the same process happen to her again. But I want her to take her time. I don't want her to rush things. It can take a while if it needs to, but I do hope that Florence, even if she does form a family and move into another stage of her life in that way, which of course I would love for her. Either way, I'm rooting for her. She continues that single kind of hippie tour lifestyle or what have you. I just hope that the journey doesn't end here, because this song feels so final in that regard, But at the same, I mean, like career retrospective. But obviously, she's not done yet. There's lots more to come. And yeah, again, the first time I listened to this record, I've got to be honest with you, wasn't quite reaching the levels I was hoping. But you have to remember that I'm coming at it from the perspective of Ceremonials and How Big, How Blue. Just those albums, I don't know if she's ever going to be able to top them. And that's something that I'm going to have to sit with, and I'm going to have to make peace with, because I still love Florence and I'm going to enjoy her music. I know I will. It's just, we all kind of have our favorite work by certain artists, and then things don't quite live up to the same because they're not going to repeat themselves, and they shouldn't. Dance Fever is a very strong record, and it is one that with repeated listens has been only growing on me. The melodies, they took a little bit longer, with the exception of My Love. The melodies, they're taking their time getting in there, but they're there. And the instrumentation, the sonic element, can I just say Cassandra acoustic, I like way, way, way more than the album version, mainly because of the harp. I'm a harp girl, so if you throw the harp in there, especially with Florence's vocals, it's over for me. Free just on the guitar is nice as well, but I don't think it's as glaringly of an upgrade. And then, Morning Elvis was already kind of acoustic, so I'm actually kind of surprised we got an acoustic version of that one, but it is what it is. And then obviously My Love, with the guitar, really wonderful stripped back version. So in love with that. And then Search and Destroy, Iggy Pop, he's not my thing. He's not my thing. Too rock and roll for me, too dude rock and roll. She says Iggy was a big inspiration for this record. I'm sure he was, but the song doesn't really do anything for me. But it's not a Florence song, so those are my thoughts on the record. Again, I would have titled it Choreomania. I maybe would have made the album cover a little more enigmatic, a little bit more avant-garde. But at the same time, the whole kind of aesthetic with the tarot cards, it does feel like there's a little untapped potential with the concept. It's almost, I know I kept making the Joanne High as Hope comparison. I almost feel like if High as Hope is Joanne, then this is Chromatica. Both have unnecessarily short interludes. Both have concepts that are so weighty but don't get fully explored. Yeah, maybe a little bit of that. I definitely think overall this record does a better job of exploring its concepts than Chromatica did. But at the same time, I don't know. The first time I listened to this record, I just didn't quite know what I was expecting, I guess. I was expecting grandiose, operatic synth pop numbers, and I was expecting ballads that were just gonna absolutely destroy me. And instead what we got was a slightly murkier, earthier kind of, and you know what? That's what I gotta expect. It's what I gotta deal with. It's what I gotta deal with. Alternative indie record, which is exactly what, Florence is ultimately selling us. I mean, she is alt indie, if you want to call it that. And so I'm fine with My Love being the only produced pop track on the record. But boy, is that a track. That is definitely my favorite. I would say my other favorites would be King, Daffodil. This gets hard. Heaven is Here just because of the experimentation and the lyrical content. I would say Prayer Factory, but it's so short, so I'm not going to include it. I'm going to say The Bomb for the lyrics. And then for number 5, maybe Girls Against God. Maybe Cassandra acoustic, because if you count that, I'd honestly put that definitely in my top 5. Maybe there's a lack of enchantment on this record in places that I wish there was more of. I mean, something a little bit more pagan coming through. I feel like it's really relegated to the interludes, and that's unfortunate. But at the end of the day, this is an improvement from Highest Hope for sure. I mean, she's really serving concept. She's serving high art. She's serving, wonderful ballads. I'm not going to complain with this. I think it's a strong record, showcasing her brilliant artistry and voice. That's really all I can say. Let me know what you think in the comments. Is this your favorite record? Were you surprised? Were you disappointed? Let me know what your favorite songs are. I will, again, like I said, link all of my reviews of Florence's records in the description. And I thank you all so much for watching. Please leave this a like if you enjoyed, and subscribe if you are new here for more Florence reviews. And I do plan on making a video where I rank every Florence song. So it'll be a tier ranking video. That's now that we have this album, I want to do that in the near future. So hopefully that'll be done sometime, not terribly far from now. Can't promise when. But I hope you all stay healthy. COVID is not a joke. No joke. It can really knock you out. And I will see you all in my next video. Peace, love, and light. Bye.